Orleans signed C.J. Spiller for something other than sitting on the fucking bench.
31 other passes that should have been intercepted with you.
So that's why I have David Johnson on my board higher.
If you're doing a live draft, wait till you're drunk to draft this guy. We welcome you to the Fifth Down. What up, Fifth Downers? This is Johnny Slokes, and you're here at the Fifth Down Football Podcast. I'm here with my partner in crime, K-Mill.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of a weekly recap, and then we'll jump into some of our waivers. There's a lot of good performances. What's the one that stuck out the most?
Man, that Steelers offense is just unstoppable, man. I mean, no matter what Ben seems to do, I mean, if Ben stays healthy all year, I really don't see a scenario where Pittsburgh is not in the Super Bowl this year. They just look so explosive. Le'Veon Bell just adds such an element to that offense because it makes teams have to game plan around him, opens things up down the field, especially with this week Sammy Coates being the real recipient of it, and obviously Antonio Brown too. But just that team's offense is just unbelievable.
Yeah, Big Ben went for 380 yards and 4 touchdowns. Sammy Coates got a pretty predictable 72-yard touchdown. You know, it was a good performance all around. Le'Veon Bell had over 150 all-purpose yards. I think he had like 9 receptions. Like he had another monster performance. Maybe not so much on the ground, but he's getting it done as a receiver too.
Man, I sure hope we get to see him stay healthy for the full season this year. Because man, what he could end up doing, I know he's been suspended for 4 games or 3 games this year, but man, the numbers he could put up in a full season.
Yeah, he's already over 300 total yards from scrimmage, and it's been only 2 games. So he's showing exactly why, like, he was supposed to go in like the top 3 in a lot of drafts before the suspension. You know.
Yeah, I think that if he stays healthy all year and Pittsburgh has to pay him money or he hits free agency, he's going to get a nice contract.
And then we also did mention Sammy Coates had a six catches for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. And you say, wow, pretty good, but he actually had like 4 drops in that game too, so it could have been an even bigger day. And I think like 2 or 3 of them could have gone for a touchdown.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And he also, like you said, he dropped another touchdown. He could have potentially had 3 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah, I mean, he left some points on the table, but I'm sure if he's on your team, you're going to definitely take what he put up. So that was a nice one.
And the biggest thing that stuck out to me too was even with Sammy Coates' drops, I believe he had 4 drops on the game. But even with that, I mean, you got to like those targets that are coming his way.
And yeah, I think he got double-digit targets too. So it'd be interesting to see if that can continue. I think my biggest performer, welcome back Tom Brady, over 400 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. He looked like he was right back on where he left off for the suspension. So it's nice to see him back with Gronk starting to get healthier too.
Yeah, agreed. I think that it was amazing, and I hate Tom Brady as a person and as a player, but I have to respect him, man. That dude, when he came back, he looked like the greatest of all time, like, a lot of Patriots fans say a lot of the time. And he did. He looked the part. He was picking apart that Browns D, and, it's like, what do we say? Is it because Tom Brady's so good, or is it because the Browns are so shitty? And I just have to say it's Brady. He's just that good.
Martellus Bennett having 3 touchdowns. So, I mean, really expecting that at all? I mean, obviously you can't really expect 3 touchdowns, but just the amount of success that he was having that afternoon, even with Gronk back. And Gronk had a pretty good game himself, too. He had, like, over 100 yards. So I think this team is definitely something to be reckoned with.
Oh, yeah, and I'll admit it in front of everybody. I'm going to eat my shit in front of you all right now and say that I was completely wrong about Martellus Bennett. I'm going to pull one out of your vocabulary, Johnny, and say I thought he was a shitload of fuck. And he's not a shitload of fuck. He actually is producing, and I was completely wrong about it. And it's really exciting now because the whole Gronk and Martellus Bennett dynamic, I mean, it just adds to an already lethal offense.
Yeah, I know. And then if we're sticking with Patriot big-time performers, Hogan had 4 catches for over 100 yards, too. And he's definitely a guy that we'll be talking about later on in the show.
And he's the guy I told people to be patient with because I really do believe in Chris Hogan. I like what I thought of him out of Buffalo last year, and I like what I've seen out of him with his limited work with Brady, this week, and then, with his work with Garoppolo or Grabaho or whatever you want to call him. But, yeah, I've been really impressed with Chris Hogan. I called it before the season even started. Like, he's a definite hold for me.
Some other notable performances by from the quarterback position. If you're streaming quarterbacks, I'm sure you're happy with Hoyer's performance, 397 yards, 2 touchdowns. Philip Rivers threw for 359, 4 touchdowns. He did have those 2 interceptions. Luck finally got his shit together, had over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then our last 300-yard performer is Derek Carr, had 317, 2 touchdowns, did throw 1 interception.
Yeah, he was really impressive this weekend, and I loved watching him and Amari Cooper hook up on that long touchdown. It was nice.
Yeah, he started out pretty ugly. I know he got picked off on one of those screen passes, but he definitely settled down as the game went on.
Yeah, he's definitely, man. I hate the Raiders as a Broncos fan, but very jealous about the quarterback that they have in the future. I think he could have. He just looks so great.
And I think we both kind of called this one. We both had David Johnson as our number 1 running back this week. He had a huge game, 27 carries for 157 yards and 2 touchdowns. What more could I say? He looked like he was getting it done.
Yeah, I mean, I was sucking his dick, so to speak, as a metaphor, all preseason and up to this point in the season. And not that he had any really bad games before this week, but I mean, this week just kind of put it all in perspective of what you do have with David Johnson. I mean, this guy is a threat. He plain and simple. There's only one back that I think is better in the league than David Johnson is as an all-around back, and that's Le'Veon Bell. And honestly, I think it's really that close.
Yeah, David Johnson certainly showed this past weekend that this is why you drafted him where you drafted him, for performances like that,
Exactly, and you called me crazy. I remember in preseason saying that he would be the number 1 back this year, and I think I'm going to be right just because Le'Veon Bell got suspended for 3 games.
All right, so another big performance was Sean McCoy had 18 carries for 150 yards. He was running rampant against that LA defense. Ezekiel Elliott had that long touchdown run. He had a couple of touchdowns on the day. DeMarco Murray was running all over the place this weekend. He had 27 carries for 121 yards and a touchdown. No, I'm sorry, he did not have a touchdown. And Jordan Howard had another 100-yard game, and he got a receiving score.
Yeah, Jordan Howard, very impressive. I love what I saw of the kid. I mean, this is a weak Indianapolis defense, but it's so promising, especially since John Fox said he's going to ride the hot hand. Jordan Howard is an extremely hot hand right now, and obviously, even when Langford comes back, I really think that this is going to be Jordan Howard's backfield for the rest of the season unless he falters or gets injured.
Yeah, it was noted that Kadeem Carey did play in that game, but looking at the game, you would have never noticed because I think he only had 2 touches. So he has complete command of that backfield right now. If he keeps impressing, he's going to run away with that starting job.
Oh, yeah.
All right. There's a lot of big performances from the receiving position this week. T.Y. Hilton had 10 receptions, 171 yards, and a touchdown, another explosion game out of him. It looks like he's starting to put together a pretty nice season.
Yeah, and I said that preseason. I expected him to post career highs this year, and it does help now that Moncrief is on the shelf right now with injury, because he's the only real target that Andrew Luck completely explicitly trusts. So I think that does add to it. But yeah, I love what I'm seeing out of T.Y. Hilton so far. I own him in a couple leagues, and he's just been absolutely fantastic.
A couple of surprise performances. Cameron Meredith from Chicago had 9 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown. He is being heavily utilized with Alshon Jeffrey banged up. Yeah,
it's definitely not good news for Alshon Jeffrey owners because everybody was hoping now that Eddie Royal's out, now that Kevin White's out.
Eddie Royal actually played too.
Yeah, he did. He was a game-time decision, but, with these guys all banged up, like it's a banged-up receiver core, that means just more targets for our boy Jeffrey, but that really didn't happen. And this kid Meredith, he really stepped up, and he's going to be a very popular waiver pickup here in a minute. We'll talk about that, but, yeah, he really stepped up.
Yeah, it's like almost like Alshon Jeffrey did something to piss off his quarterback or something, because I think this week he was 4th in targets, last week he was 3rd in targets, and the week before that he was 3rd in targets.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing, if it's just his style of play or whatever, but, I mean, in preseason the Bears looked so bad, you were like, oh yeah, the team's going to be really shitty, but Jeffrey will easily see double-digit targets each game, and that has not been the case at all. And if I'm a Jeffrey owner, which I was targeting him in a lot of trades preseason, that's very worrisome.
And then San Diego, both of their receivers had 117 yards. Tyrell Williams had the touchdown. I think that both of these guys, if you could trade for one of these guys, they have a really nice fantasy football playoff schedule. So.
Oh yeah, they do. Very light playoff schedule, and they both have been receiving a shit ton of targets each game. So that's great news. And they both have what I would say is pretty safe wide receiver 3 floors.
Yeah, they both can fly too, as evidenced in that game.
Yeah.
Brandon Marshall, who was a target monster this past weekend, had 15 targets, 8 catches for 114 yards, and he also scored a touchdown. It's looking like he's going to be like the guy that they're going to lean on with Eric Decker out.
Yeah. I was trying to trade him in some of my leagues, and he's put it together, man. He looks healthy now, which is the biggest thing I think going forward. He looks healthy. And Eric Decker, I know he's week to week technically, but a torn rotator cuff. You might want to get that surgically repaired, man. I honestly, in my opinion, don't see Eric Decker coming back this season. So, and if that's the case, then Marshall, as long as he's healthy, is going to continue to dominate targets along with Enumwa.
He said that he could probably play with it eventually, but it's obviously would be something that's going to bother him all year. So, I mean, might as well just get it repaired. Why not fuck it up anymore, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Because when you play injured, you're just risking a worse injury, and which could take even more recovery time. I would just call a spade, get it done, and then come back next season. But it's up to him.
And then we had a welcome back party for Randall Cobb. Had 9 receptions for 108 yards. Nice to see that, you know.
Yeah, it is if you're a Randall Cobb owner, not for me, who I just lost a close game against a Randall Cobb owner. Partly because of that stupid fucking performance. So, yes. But, yeah, very impressive. And we, on this show, actually wrote him off a little bit. But, I think we were a little too early on that one.
Yeah, he's looking like he was just more involved. And then that's just what you need to do is get him more involved.
Well, and
getting involved before.
Well, and you're right. Yeah, this Packers offense wasn't getting it done. They weren't being a cohesive unit. And I think they figured a little bit of that out. And now Randall Cobb's going to utilize some more of his strengths, and I guess they're just getting it figured out. So going forward, I like Randall Cobb.
All right, let's jump into some waiver wire picks. There's only a few quarterbacks I really want to mention. Obviously, Marcus Mariota actually had a decent day. He had under 200 yards passing, but he had 3 touchdowns. Also had 60 yards rushing for on like 7 carries. So he finally looked like he was a competent quarterback this past weekend. He's 47% owned in Yahoo leagues. Would you hire or fire Marcus Mariota at this point?
I'm going to say fired. One good performance against the shitty Miami defense doesn't make you a pickup for me. I'm still not sold on Mariota. In fact, I've probably been one of his harshest critics, and I think he needs to get together. It was an impressive, dominant showing, 4 touchdowns to the air. Anyways, so yeah, it was a good confidence booster, I think, and he did play. He had a good matchup, but right now I'm still fired on him.
All right, Brian Hoyer is still 18% owned. He had almost 400 yards passing, and these past 3 games that he started, he's thrown 6 touchdowns, and he hasn't thrown any interceptions. And there's rumblings that he could end up being the starting quarterback for Chicago, even when Jay Cutler comes back. But, we had already seen it before in the past where he kind of starts out hot and then he kind of falls off towards the end, you know what I mean? So it's something to monitor, but I think if in like 2 quarterback leagues, that's not a bad hold at all.
No, I don't think so. I was just going to mention that in 2 quarterback leagues, I think this is a great pickup. So I'm going to say hired just for that reason. But, yeah, he's got to continue his success. I mean, in real life, he had a wide-open target in the end zone, and he threw it away, and he basically cost the Bears the game. But fantasy-wise, I think that he's definitely shown that he's a more confident quarterback than Jay Cutler, which which isn't really saying too much, but he hasn't really turned the ball over a lot, and I think that's the biggest thing.
Right, and I think another interesting stream that could happen this next week is Alex Smith. He's coming out of a bye. He gets to play Oakland. He's 18% owned. I think if your quarterback is on a bye, say if you're an unfortunate owner and you had like Jameis Winston as your starting quarterback, you could throw Alex Smith in there. I think he'll have a fine day against Oakland.
Yeah, I think that Oakland's a fine matchup to have, even with the number one corner in the league, according to Pro Football Focus.
Yeah, he got picked on.
Yeah, he did. He got fucked up. That's why I kind of wanted to point that out and get joked on. But, yeah, going back to that, I think this is a very exploitable secondary. So, yeah, any quarterback really is a good stream option against the Oakland defense.
Is there any other quarterbacks you want to mention? I know there's Joe Flacco that's always going to be out there. Anyone else?
Well, yeah, Joe Flacco will probably always be out there for the rest of the season, but, I mean, he described the offense himself. He said that they were embarrassing, the Baltimore offense. So, if he's describing his own offense as embarrassing, and we don't even know the extent of Steve Smith Sr.'s injury, so who knows with that.
He was on his way to another big afternoon before he got hurt, too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we got definitely something you want to monitor. It looked like a high ankle sprain, though.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, you know, that's an area of concern.
He's a tough guy.
Yeah, but he's a tough guy. Definitely a warrior.
All right. Well, we were just watching this player. Quiz Rogers had like 30 carries. He had over 100 total yards. I don't really think he's a higher at this point just because they have a bye week, and after the bye week, Doug Martin should come back. But I think he was a pretty good stream for anyone that wanted to put in like a flex play this week.
Yeah. I think that he would have been a really good flex play this week, but I don't think he's going to see too much usage past Doug Martin being back. I think that once Doug Martin's fully healthy, he's just going to be that lead back, and then Quiz Rogers will come in there as a kind of a change of pace. But I did like what I saw tonight, but I think it goes to show you really how bad that Carolina defense is now, you know?
Facing the kind of adversity that they're really not normal or used to, you know what I mean? Usually they're like one of the top defenses, and lately they've been kind of like Swiss cheese, as you like to say.
Yeah, they have, and I think it's because when they're a team that they don't like to play down, I've noticed they when they're winning and they're scoring shit tons of points and doing great, then yeah, the whole team plays great. But when they're playing subpar, the whole team really plays subpar, and they don't really have any fighters on that team, so that's just a quick observation on my part.
Yeah, I think that in part is because when they have that big lead, they can unleash that front seven that's usually stronger, and then usually that's when they have the most success because they can just get that front seven after you, and they don't really have to worry about the run as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have another guy we were just watching, Cameron Artis-Payne, had a couple of touchdowns. I think he had a career high in yards, too. It does look like, though, that Jonathan Stewart will be back next week.
Yeah, I would hope so, because it's getting really confusing for me, because, they Fazley Whitaker and Cameron Artis-Payne, they complement each other really well. I like Fazley Whitaker a little bit more, but like I said, it really, it doesn't matter, because Jonathan Stewart should be back next week, and but, good to keep an eye on those guys.
Guy that I've started to notice that's getting more work is Devontae Booker. He had 10 touches this past weekend. He only saw the ball 4 fewer times than C.J. Anderson, and he only had 3 fewer yards. I think he put up like 60 total yards. I think that's definitely a guy you want to stash, especially if you're a C.J. Anderson owner.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He's a guy that can really step into that three-back role instantly if something were to happen to C.J. Anderson. And I wouldn't call it a full-blown timeshare by any means. But C.J. Anderson just wasn't getting it done. I watched the whole game on Sunday. He wasn't being an effective runner. Denver couldn't establish a run, which is part of the reason why they lost. And so Coach Kubiak put Booker in there, and Booker was making some nice moves out there. So, yeah, and he could potentially be like a lottery pick if you stash him on your bench, something happens to C.J. Anderson, or if he gets benched or whatever, you potentially have a guy that could, catapult you to the championship.
Especially if you're like a guy that's been struck really hard with injuries towards this first quarter of the season. If you could pick up a guy like that and he ends up becoming the starter, that's a real gem.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. I'm not really so sure about how serious the injury is to Eddie Lacy. But Darkby wasn't really efficient in his place. But if he is the start, I think he's probably going to be a high waiver wire pick this week. He is owned in like 9% of Yahoo leagues. He had 15 touches for only 52 yards. But I think they get Chicago next. I could be wrong, though.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, too, and I'm wondering if I really want to spend my waiver priority. And, if you have a low waiver priority, I guess you could definitely do worse. If you got a throwaway player, why not? And then you can just drop him next week if he's not utilized the way that sounds. So from what I'm hearing, though, this Eddie Lacy injury isn't very serious. It sounds like, if anything, he'll only miss a week. So I really don't know if I'd waste a waiver priority on a guy that's been very inefficient when called upon.
All right. Another guy that's 46% owned in Yahoo leagues was James White. He had himself a pretty good game for New England. He actually was on the field more than Blunt was. I know Blunt was a little bit banged up, but he had 9 touches for 87 yards. I think that he's probably more of like a running back 4 at this point, but definitely not a bad pickup.
Yeah, definitely not. Especially if you're hurting at that running back position. I think a Brady-led offense makes any player on that offense dangerous, so why not? But also to keep in mind, too, Deion Lewis could be coming back here any week now, so that's another thing to keep an eye on.
That's right. That's exactly in the direction I wanted to go with this conversation. Deion Lewis is owned in 19% of leagues. If you have an IR spot or a deep bench, I think it would behoove you to hold on to him now so you don't really have to worry about the scramble for him later. Yeah,
absolutely. I have guys that have been stashing him since the draft. Like, they just took a really late round flyer on him and stashed him in their IR spot. And leagues they do have IR spots, or, hey, they even stashed him in like a little extra bench spot. But yeah, this Deion Lewis is coming back, and he's a guy that was just a PPR champion last year and should continue to be so with Brady coming back now. So, I think that he's definitely, if he's still out there and he's still sitting there, pick him up.
All right, these next 4 guys, I want to do a little bit of higher fire with you. They're guys that some of the guys are coming back from injury, and some of the guys have been like fill-ins.
Okay.
You got Rawls. He's 50% owned. I know he's going to be probably out for the rest of this month. Do you think he's worth the stash, or do you want to hire him or now, or do you want to just wait?
You know what? I wait right now, especially with Seattle coming off the bye. We've only seen 2 games with Christine Michael being the workhorse back there. He's been impressive in 2 games, but I would wait because, honestly, Christine Michael could run away with this job. And by the time Rawls is fully healed, Christine Michael could have already ran away with this job. So I'm going to go ahead and hold and wait.
All right, and the next guy on this list, higher fire, Jeremy Langford, 44% owned in Yahoo leagues. I know he's still going to be out for a few more weeks, and Howard has been looking pretty good. Is that still a guy that you think could come back and be productive?
No, fired. He didn't prove anything when he was in. He had fumbling trouble. Jordan Howard's been as impressive as it gets, especially for a rookie running back. Kadeem Carey is also in that mix, too, which doesn't help his case. I definitely say fire for Jeremy Langford.
I feel like the only way that Jeremy Langford is a hire is if you're a Jordan Howard owner. Other than that, leave him on the wire.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way.
Like, next hire fire, Kenneth Dixon, 38% owned. I know he didn't really do a whole lot, and he was wearing a knee brace.
Yeah, I say hired for Kenneth Dixon. Terrence West is still, even with 2 back-to-back great performances, he's on a pretty short leash with this Ravens organization. Just because it's been a mess back there, and he's the most talented back in there, and he easily challenged West. And another thing too is Dixon wasn't fully healthy, so that also adds to the reason why he didn't play too much. And I think that he's just going to continue week to week to get more and more healthy, and he's going to push West for that spot.
Yeah, I'm saying hire Kenneth Dixon now, because I think in a couple of weeks when he gets a little bit more healthy, you're going to start to see what he can do on the field, and it's going to give him more opportunity to stay on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. I say for the next 2 or 3 weeks, you hold on to him. If your fantasy team is playing well, and you don't need to make any ads or any serious ads or Band-Aid ads. Hold on to him as long as you can, because I really think that before the end of the season, he could be that starting running back in this Ravens offense.
All right, the last higher fire is Jay Ajayi. He had 13 carries, 42 yards, and a touchdown. How do you feel about Jay Ajayi at this point?
Well, and this is a really hot topic. A lot of people might disagree with me. I say higher for Jay Ajayi because, number one, Arian Foster I know is probably coming back next week. But I don't think anybody here trusts Arian Foster to stay healthy. He's already banged up. We're already 6 weeks in. He's only played 1 week. I say definitely hired for Jay Ajayi. He's been the most talented running back in the Miami backfield. And like I said, Arian Foster, his days are numbered.
Well, you just said it yourself. Arian Foster is probably coming back next week. So I'm going to have to say fire for Jay Ajayi. And it has really nothing to do with him. It has everything to do with the fact that offensive line's terrible. I don't even trust. You said you don't trust Arian Foster. I don't trust Jay Ajayi either. I don't trust neither one of them, to be honest. But at least I know Arian Foster does a better job catching the ball out of the backfield. I have to have him as a fire.
Yeah, I don't say immediately, like he shouldn't be an every week start, obviously, but I do say as a bench stash, he's a good bench stash to have.
All right, a few more players that I want to mention before we can move on. Bilal Powell, he caught 6 of 8 targets for 41 yards. This is the third week in a row where he has received Matt Forte. I think that can kind of make him a shaky flex play, not necessarily a guy you want to just throw right in there, but he's definitely worth a pickup. Yeah,
I did it in the league this week. I didn't really have a whole lot of other options, so I played him in my flex. He got me 9 points. But yeah, you gotta like the catching work that he's doing, catching balls out of the backfield. He's getting a lot of work in that respect. Matt Forte is obviously still the workhorse until an injury happens, but he's already starting to cut into his workload, so his needle is on the up, and I think
back-to-back weeks he had more than 10 touches.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if you have Matt Forte, you should own Bilal Powell. If not, though, if he's still out there on your waiver wire, you need to pick him up. This is like my last call on him because I'm telling you, if an injury happens to Matt Forte, Bilal Powell is going to be that 3-down back, and that's very encouraging.
Yeah, he was definitely a guy I was really intrigued with before the season started, and now you're starting to see why. I thought that he would be that 3rd-down back, and he's starting to carve out that role. So I think it's a pretty important role for a team that likes to throw the ball a lot too.
And with a back in front of him that has an injury history.
All right, last guy a couple guys else that I want to talk about is Matt Asiata. He is a thief. He steals all these touchdowns. He's done it for back-to-back weeks now. He actually got quite a bit of work when they were trying to kill the clock. He had 14 carries, 55 yards, and like I said, that touchdown too.
Yeah, of course this fucker will get 22 points after I drop for one of my teams. So it's just kind of as a speculative ad. Maybe he ends up splitting more work with McKinnon than usual. But honestly, both of them are cutting into each other's work. Matt Asiata is stealing touchdowns. Stealing like little by little work, here and there from Jerick McKinnon. So honestly, they hurt each other's value. So if you got a guy, Jerick McKinnon's obviously the guy with more value. If you have him, I'd want to flip him in one league, honestly. Just if you know a guy that covets him, try to flip him in a trade because really,
he's been a popular name in trade talks in a lot of other leagues too.
Yeah, exactly. He's a guy you either like or you don't.
All right. The last guy I want to talk about is more of a PPR ad. If you Bobby Rainey, 5% owned. I think he could be like more of a running back 4 at this point. But he had 11 touches for 74 yards, and the Giants lost to Green Bay. He is the one that got the most playing time too.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to take him seriously. He looks good, and with Jennings his role kind of unknown at this point. Going forward, it's a good trend in the right direction is what I'm trying to say with Rainey.
He seems like he has that Shane Vereen role of that offense now that Shane Vereen's out for the season. So it's definitely a position that has some value.
Yeah.
All right, let's go over to some receivers. I want to play some more higher fire with you, some of these receivers, because I think some of these are a lot of these receivers that are on the waiver are kind of a question mark. Like, they could be worth the ad, but some of them I think are better off on the wire. Devontae Adams, higher fire. He had 5 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown this past weekend.
He's just so fluky to me. I don't know. Unless you're desperate for a receiver, I say fired.
All right, and the next one I want to talk about is Kenny Britt. through 5 weeks now, he has 32 targets. He's on pace for 1,100 yards. He had 5 catches for 75 yards. How do you feel about Kenny Britt?
I'm actually glad you brought him up because I was going to I don't know why I didn't mention him. But, yeah, he's been seeing that target here. I think that Case Keenum is finally starting to see how unreliable a target Tavon Austin is. And Kenny Britt's being the primary recipient of it. So I say hired. I mean, this whole his value has to stem from this LA offense being so bad. So I say that he's definitely a guy that is like a prime pickup, I think, like if you're weak at receiver. I say hired.
Yeah. I think I got him at like a wide receiver 4. He's definitely worth the pickup. I know he's definitely going to have some down weeks in that offense, but I think he's probably the best option they have. I mean, Tavon Austin's more of a gadget player, and I think he fits the bill more for that number 1 spot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too.
All right. Hire or fire Terrence Williams. He has 70 yards or a touchdown in the last 3 games.
Well, I think my money is on Dez Bryant coming back at some point and cutting into his workload again. I tried to believe the Terrence Williams hype last year when Dez went out, and he just didn't perform. And I know he had like a rogues gallery of quarterbacks last year, but that really shouldn't. I just don't like the guy. I say fired.
Yeah, I got him as a fire as well. I mean, he's definitely a guy you could pick up if you're in a dire need, and he's not like a permanent solution. He's more of a temporary fix because Dez Bryant's going to come back. So
yeah, he's a Band-Aid for me too.
Yep. And Newell is still 51% owned, and he has 25 targets in the past 3 games. I think he's more of a wide receiver 3. It's pretty crazy that he's only owned in 51% of leagues. He's definitely out there. I have him as a hire.
Well, I have him as a hire as well. My money's on Eric Decker not playing another game this season, and if he does, he's going to be very unheavily targeted. So I like him. He has like a wide receiver 2 ceiling, I think, and then he has a pretty safe wide receiver 3-4, in my opinion, with Eric Decker out.
All right, this next one's a little bit absurd. Golden Tate is owned in 73% of leagues. Last week he had 39 yards, which was his 3rd highest of the year. He hasn't gone over 41 yards in a game yet this year. He's owned in 73% of leagues. And, I mean, I shouldn't have to ask you this, hire or fire Golden Tate. It definitely looks like a fire at this point.
Yeah, he's not getting utilized the way that we all expected. Marvin Jones getting the lion's share over there, no pun intended. And just, Golden Tate hasn't really stepped up. He's a yards after the catch guy, and his yards after the catch has really been asked. So yeah, it's definitely a fire for me. Obviously, he's a guy that you could probably have for pick him up if you're pretty weak at receiver. But other than that, no, I'd say fired.
I mean, I just think it's crazy that he's still owned in 73% of leagues.
Yeah, I would have given up on him at this point.
All right. Next, hire or fire Victor Cruz. He put up a big goose egg this past weekend. He's owned in 45% of leagues.
I still say, I've said it beginning of the season, I'm still saying it now. He's been a popular pickup week's end. Yeah, he's fire for me. He's just not getting enough targets, and he has too many people to compete for with targets on that Giant team.
Yeah, Victor Cruz, he's a guy I haven't really been on board with him. I think if he's on the waiver wire, you could probably leave him there. The next hire or fire is Cole Beasley, owned in 40% of leagues. He put up a 4 for 53 line with a touchdown. I think in PPR leagues he's worth the ad, but if you're in a standard league, you could probably leave him there.
Yeah, I think definitely. I couldn't agree with you more on that one. And I think that the line that he left this week, that 4 for 50 and a touchdown, I think that's going to be a very similar line throughout, with or without the touchdown. But that's pretty much what you're going to see. Some weeks you're going to get 4 or 5 points from him. Some weeks you're going to get 17 because he gets a touchdown, So it's going to vary week to week. But, yeah, in PPR leagues, I think he's worth the ad, especially if you're weak at wide receiver. If not, though, leave him on the wire.
It'd be interesting to see if it, because he was doing better with Dez Bryant in the lineup. So now, ever since he left, he hasn't been getting as many targets.
Yeah, he's definitely drawing more coverage with Dez Bryant out of the lineup. So yeah, stay tuned on that one. I definitely think he's more of a play for me if he has a good matchup and Dez Bryant's in the lineup. I think he's a solid play week to week.
All right, this next guy had a big week this past week. Sammy Coates, he's higher or fire. He's owned in 37% of leagues. Obviously, had a 100-yard game thanks to that 72-yard touchdown.
You know what? This is one that I'm really having a problem calling because I've said all year I'm like, yeah, Sammy Coates maybe not. Preseason I said that he maybe not. But at this point, I don't know if it's a fluke or not. I'm going to say higher just because of how impressive he was this weekend. But it doesn't.
Yeah, I got him as a nice. Yeah, I got him as a nice wide receiver 4.
Yeah, he's definitely, for me, he's a guy that's a boomer or bust because with the drops, you're going to have those problems week to week. So with that being said, he's a guy that's going to blow the fuck up one week, and then he's going to give you a big goose egg the next week. So I wouldn't trust him as your third receiver on a team, but I think that he's definitely worth an ad. I think that it's going to be hard to predict when he does and doesn't blow up, though.
Yeah, you're definitely going to leave a lot of points with him on your team. You're going to leave a lot of points on your bench. It's interesting to note that he has a 40-yard reception in every single game this year.
Yeah, exactly, and that's almost been a commonplace for me when I'm calling. What I predict he'll do. On our Saturday shows.
But you gotta think eventually that streak's going to end, and he is going to put up a goose egg.
Oh yeah,
I can definitely see it.
It's coming. In fact, I have a feeling it'll be this next game because everybody's going to go rush to the waiver wire, pick him up, and everybody's going to be really excited to play him. And then
your face, you see it time and time again.
Dude, you know how fantasy works. Every single time this happens, it's like a popular waiver pickup, and then just goose egg. So I can see it coming definitely.
All right, the next guy, higher fire, Jameis Crowder, Clam Chowder.
Clam Chowder. I actually like this guy. I love how he's just the dink-dunk guy for Kirk Cousins. Like, he just really short completions. He's not doing anything, otherworldly at this point, but he's doing enough to keep this Redskins offense afloat. And I think that he's a pretty safe wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3 at this point.
Yeah, he's actually been kind of cooled off these past couple of weeks. He hasn't been getting as many targets, but he did manage to get an 85-yard touchdown off a punt return. So if your league counts that for individual players, I think that's good. But I'm a little bit reluctant to just rush out to add him at this point. I don't really necessarily think it's a guy that you have to waste a waiver wire on. You can actually just wait until it's first come, first serve.
Yeah, you make a good point on that one, and now that he's cooled off of it, I think that a lot of people will be able to wait on him because, everybody's going to be rushing to pick up Sammy Coates, but they're, not going to be necessarily rushing to pick up Crowder, even though, with that, unless their league does, like you said, for the 85-yard punt return touchdown. So, yeah, I think that he's not worth wasting your waiver priority on.
All right, next one is Tajay Sharp. He had 2 catches for 17 yards on 4 targets. I think at this point, it wouldn't hurt just to leave him on the waiver wire or just cut him from your team. So you're not going to be hurt.
Yeah, I made a trade for him. I mean, I gave it Josh Gordon, so it wasn't really a barn burner by any means. It kind of didn't help either team. So, yeah, I'm at this point, I'm 90% certain if there's somebody that I want, that I will drop Tajay Sharp because it looks like he's all but been eliminated. And, Rashard Matthews was really impressive, and he looks like he's poised to operate as that number 1 in that Tennessee offense from now on.
Yeah, once again, you're going in the direction I want to go with this conversation. Rashard Matthews scored his first touchdown as a Tennessee Titan. And you got to think one of these receivers has to step up. They can't just keep going to Delaney Walker.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to last the full season if they continue to lean on him like they have. So, and I said it at the start of the season. I think that Rashard Matthews is going to be the number 1. I was very surprised when it was Tajay Sharp at the start of the season. But from all indications, the coaches have been saying, he's taking some steps back, this and that. So, yeah, I think that this is where Rashard Matthews starts to step up and, he gets some chemistry going with Mariota.
All right. The next guy I want to talk about, higher fire, Robert Woods. He had only 2 catches for 26 yards on 6 targets.
Well, he's a guy that, I viewed only as a stopgap anyways. I think that last week he was fire for me when he was a popular pickup. I picked him up in a couple leagues if I knew that I was going to be hitting a pretty significant buy in one of my leagues. If I had, say, Mike Evans going on a buy next week, I was a little preemptive, and I was like, okay, I got to pick up Robert Woods, so I have somebody. But he's a fire. He's not worth a waiver pickup. He's just not talented enough.
I think if he's already on your team, you don't necessarily cut him. You keep him on your bench. But if he's sitting there on the waivers, you could probably just leave him there.
Just leave him there. Let someone else pick him up. If not, if first come first serve, and you need a receiver, I think he's worth it.
And this next guy, I think, is definitely a hire. He's going to be one of the top waiver picks. Is Hogan. He went over 100 yards this past weekend. He's owned in 25% of leagues, and Tom Brady's back. He's going to have some opportunity to make some plays.
Yeah, well, and something else I want to mention about this, and I don't think that a lot of people are really thinking about this. They're just looking at the box score that he got. But think about it this way too. Amendola's injury prone. He lost his first 2 seasons to a knee injury. We know he's been injury prone in the past. Julian Edelman's already starting to have foot problems again. So if that continues and one of these guys misses some time, just look for Chris Hogan to step up. Like really, even so, if he gets even more targets, I mean, come on, this kid could be amazing.
You definitely like what you can bring to the table. I guess the last guy we could mention is Cameron Meredith. He got 9 of 12 targets for 130 yards and a touchdown. He's only owned in 4% of leagues, so he's definitely out there. He's probably going to be one of the top waiver picks as well.
Yeah, I love this kid, especially with, I don't know what it is, and I can't figure it out if the coaches just don't trust Jeffrey enough, or if his play is just not speaking for itself, or whatever the case may be. But my point is that these targets are very much up for grabs, and with Eddie Royal on the mend, Kevin White done for the season, I think this guy has already cemented himself with a role in this offense, so I say definitely hired.
And if you have Eddie Royal, is he a fire?
Hard to say at this point, but the injury is concerning, and I think that if you can add somebody better this week, like we mentioned, go ahead and do it. I think that he's definitely droppable.
Yeah, he had 7 catches, but he only had 43 yards, so he definitely looked limited.
Yeah, and with the injury, honestly, this isn't like a guy, Des Bryant, where you're obviously going to hold him on your bench. He's Eddie Royal, you can drop him and be okay.
Well, another guy we didn't even mention is, I hope I'm saying this right, Killian, the receiver from Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
He had 7 catches for 127 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, it's really interesting on what's going on with this Vikings offense. Cordarrelle Patterson is now back with a role in that offense. I called that a couple weeks ago. I actually felt like he was going to get a role again in that offense. So he's back in the fold. You obviously have Diggs. You obviously have Charles Johnson. But, yeah, he definitely stepped up, and I think that he has proven himself to get more work in. I don't know if I would necessarily rush to get him this week. I think
Diggs should be back.
Yeah, I would wait till first come, first serve hit. Maybe add him if, you're really confident in him. But at the same token, I think we're a week off on this kid. Let's wait and see. This is just 1 week.
Well, I think this is a typical player that you run out to get him and he ends up doing nothing, and you're just chasing points. So I don't see him doing that again.
That's what I'm saying too. Let's wait and see. Don't rush out to get him. Is my advice on him.
All right. Is there any other receivers that you want to mention?
I think we hit them all.
All right, let's go over to tight end.
Actually,
I know.
Hold on. I did have one more. And this is just if he's still out there. Jeremy Curley looks like the obvious number 1 in that 49ers offense. So if he's still out there, I definitely think now he's an ad. Like, he's definitely an ad.
Yeah, I don't know how he missed that. I have him right here down on my paper. I must have just overlooked him. Yeah, he's got 45 targets in 5 weeks, so he's one of the target leaders in the league right now. He's just coming off an 8-catch game for over 100 yards on 13 targets, and I think he's definitely on that wide receiver 3 map.
Yeah, definitely so. I say he's a hired for me just because of not so much his talent level, but his opportunity. He has the opportunity to be that number 1. He is that number 1. Go get him.
Sometimes that's all you need is some opportunity. I feel like he's everything that we were hoping out of Torrey Smith this year.
Exactly, yeah, and I know we were both on the Torrey Smith hype train, and it just didn't pan out. So, but with Jeremy Curley, it did. So if he's still on your waiver wire, I would go ahead and add him.
He is on many people's waiver wires. He's 9% owned in Yahoo leagues.
Well, there you go.
All right, so now we'll go over to tight end. I know this guy just kind of fucked you over. Cameron Brate, 41% owned. obviously I think you're going to want to find a different tight end.
Yeah, well, and I only used him this week strictly as a stopgap. I had Kelsey on a bye. He burned me tonight, and I can safely say that the Bray train has come to a screeching halt, that he is droppable at this point, unless, you lost your starting tight end, and he's pretty much all you got. But honestly, I think there's better options out there.
I just want to mention, in case someone panicked about Gronk coming back and they ended up dropping Martellus Bennett, because I know he's still owned in 86% of leagues, so he's highly owned still. But if you are in a league where he was dropped out of panic, I'd definitely try to scoop him up.
Oh yeah. He looks like he's going to be a nice contributing member of this Patriots offense this year. So definitely.
Jesse James had 6 for 43 line with a touchdown. He's got 3 touchdowns in 5 weeks. He kind of seems like a player that's still touchdown dependent, but he's getting quite a bit of touchdowns.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if a touchdown dependent guy is getting touchdowns, it's really all you need. It's the opportunity.
I feel like my opinion changes on this player every week.
Yeah, I feel like one week I'm like, oh yeah, this is great, and then the next week it's just, well, he doesn't get that touchdown.
What the fuck
he ends up turning into performance like Cameron Brate did tonight. So, because Cameron Brate, in my opinion, is a touchdown-dependent tight end.
They're both kind of similar in the way they're used in fantasy.
Yeah, exactly. So my point is that, yeah, he's definitely got the opportunity, but you have to understand that week to week, he's going to give you a goose egg or he's going to blow up on you. It's hard to predict. He's boom or bust.
Well, a guy that I thought wasn't going to really do a whole lot, and I guess he really didn't have a lot of targets. He had 4 targets on the game, but Hunter Henry had 3 catches for 74 yards, and he scored another 1-yard touchdown pass.
Oh, yeah, he was the guy that I was talking about when we were talking about Brate, that I wasn't going to mention because I was going to let you talk about him. But, man, oh, man, he's the guy that if he's still out there, man, you have to add this kid. He can no longer be ignored. Antonio Gates is an injury risk, and he's already cutting into Antonio Gates' work. He's a guy that needs to be added.
It looks like he has carved himself a role in that offense. They're using Antonio Gates in third down and the red zone, but he ended up getting the red zone touchdown. So I definitely think he still has some value in that offense. I think he's still more of a tight end too, but definitely a guy that you could try to throw in there if your tight end's on a bye.
I think Antonio Gates is going to get injured any day now and be out for the season. So I think that if you stash Henry, you could potentially have a tight end one by the end of the season.
Gates looks slow, man.
He does. He looks really slow, and and what I'm saying is Henry is already cut into his work, so why not just get there early and before Gates goes out for the rest of the season, you already have Henry, bam, right there you spell on a tight end 1 right there because he looks impressive, man. I love the way this kid's getting utilized.
Definitely has a knack for the game. So next guy is Charles Clay. He had all 5 of his targets for 73 yards. He finally came out of nowhere. I think he's still more of a tight end too at this point. They wouldn't necessarily rush out to go get him.
I wouldn't either. His usage just changes so drastically week to week. It's just so hard to predict that I don't even want the headache. If I don't have to go out and add him, then I just don't want to add him. If you have a tight end that you trust and you believe in the rest of the season, a guy that maybe already had his bye and you're good for the rest of the season, just be good with that, and you don't need to go out and add this guy.
Guy that may or may not be available in your league is Eric Ebron. He's owned it in 55% of Yahoo leagues. I think a lot of that has to do with the injury and him missing this past game. But if someone dropped Eric Ebron, I think you got to snag him. I mean, he's available in half the leagues out there, so.
Well, especially if you're one of those guys that drafted a tight end late, and you got some guy like Dwayne Allen, who I just think just looks slow and phased out of that, the Colts game plan. If he was the tight end you ended up with, hell, drop him, pick up a guy like Ebron or Henry, All
right. Last guy I guess we can mention, Jacob Tamme, had 1 catch for 1 yard. Congratulations. I think he's worth the drop now. Thanks for filling in.
Too. Yeah, it was short-lived, the Jacob Tamme hype, but, this guy's strictly he's just a mediocre tight end. He was presented with an opportunity, and he did pretty well, but I think his time is up, and I think that he'll be fluky here and there. It's a high-powered offense. He'll get a touchdown week in, week out. He'll be a popular waiver wire pick one week, and then, he'll get dropped the next week, so I would just stay away from it altogether.
All right, I think that pretty much does it for our waiver wire show today. Thank you for tuning in to the Fifth Down Fantasy Football Podcast. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spreaker. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do that as well. It's Fifth Down FF. We'll be taking fantasy football questions all week long, so please don't hesitate to ask. That'll do it for episode 34.
Hey, thanks, guys. Rate and review us, please. We need you. We love you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope it gave you the extra down advantage. Peace out, Fifth Downers.